Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of From the Ground Up, real time issues and real time solutions for MWBEs and small businesses. We thank you for tuning in. We thank you for sharing the broadcast with your colleagues and friends because you know the content is always amazing on the show. Queen Strategy Partners is brought to you by Nicole Valentine Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. And we are thrilled because we are still celebrating Women's History Month and all of the magic that comes with being a woman. So we thank you for being here and go ahead and share it out. Tell a friend, bring a neighbor, let them know that this is a conversation that they're going to want to be a part of. But my favorite part of the show, the first and third Tuesday morning of every month, is introducing my beautiful, dynamic, and amazing co host, the one and only Danielle Douglas. Over to you, Danielle.
Thank you, Miss Dr. Stacey and C. Grant. I tell you, I am so excited about today. It is the second version of Women's History Month, and we have a fabulous guest with us this morning. I mean, when we talk about Black Girl Magic, we are in the house this morning with some Black Girl Magic. And I absolutely love our guest. She is not only how can I say, a fabulous woman, but she is someone who's near and dear to my heart. She's a soror. She is like a mentor. She is everything to me, and she knows that. But I just want y'all to know that. So, without further ado, I want Miss. I'm saying doctor because I'm so used to saying Miss Doctor Stacey C. Grant. I was about to throw that, but we are going to give Miss Valerie White a round of applause.
Welcome,
Yes. Good morning and thank you. And before I get started with the conversation, I just want to say we are all Black Girl Magic. I am so delighted and humbled that you all are sharing your stage with me. And I even, because you heard it for a second, but I was able to mute it. I'm even sharing this on my Facebook page as well because it's so important for us to lift up our Black sisters, our D9 sister, Stacy, which of course I know that you are, and of course my soror, on the Crimson and Cream, Danielle Douglas. But it's important. I've been having a lot of conversations lately with a lot of my other sisters, right? Whether they are D9 or sisters in Black executive, about executive spaces, sisters in nonprofits, about what we face as Black women, right? When we are in leadership positions. So I'm hoping we get to chat a little bit about that today.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
It
Look,
sounded juicy already, Danielle. Like we
yes, the stage is yours, Miss Valerie. So
Yeah.
we would love to tap into that. And I just want to say that Miss Valerie is a woman who walks her talk. She is, when I tell you again, as I said with one of our other guests, Miss Tanya Pope, Miss Valerie White, she has been so supportive of me. I look to her as a mentor. I look to her for guidance, and especially as I began to try to have a successful nonprofit organization, in addition to my regular business, she is right there with me, hand in hand, and serving as a guide. So thank you, Valerie. I so appreciate that. And so I just want to say that because she's truly walking the talk and helping me build my capacity as a leader. So
and
thank
and
you.
that's I love that, Danielle. I'm glad that you said that publicly. You might share that privately, right? But it's important to shout out those who create space for you, who understand that we're stronger together and can put opportunities in place or open up doors or conversations that help us grow. And that's what we're celebrating when we talk about women in business. So we have a lot of questions, but before we get into that, I would just like you to share, Valerie, your journey to now. We're proud that you're the executive director of List NYC, but it didn't start there. And we were having some green room conversations about one of the other boroughs I love called the Bronx. But just tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming Valerie White, because I think it's also important as we create space during Women's History Month to show the journey a lot of times we just show the finished product, but there was a journey that brought you here and all of your executive leadership experience.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, give honor and kudos to the two of you in your entrepreneurial spirits, both with your business, Danielle with her nonprofit. But I do watch all of the work that you all do, and I'm just very pleased to be here. So I've had such an eclectic road, right? And it's interesting. I try to spend a lot of time with young people of color, in particular, young Black people who are looking to gain entry into a number of industries. And you always get asked this question, right? When you do a speech or you're mentoring, what was your 5-year plan? What was your 10-year plan? I was like, what happened was nothing on the plan, right? It just was a whole nother direction. I'll start from where I am now and kind of move my way back because I'm actually retired. I retired from Wall Street, a firm, Standard and Poor's, about maybe about 4 years ago. It might be longer than that now. Time is flying, right? And so what I do now is my retirement job. And I always laugh. Danielle has heard me say this. I said it was either doing this or checking them receipts at Home Depot, right? When the people leave, because that's what retired people do. And I was ready to do that. But, just very blessed to have this opportunity. But I have a bachelor's degree from Fordham University in communications, also a law degree. In between those two degrees, I have a master's of science and a certificate in organization development from New School. My path that I thought I was going to follow was really going to be focused primarily in the broadcast and journalism industry, but I ended up working in analysis, statistical type of analysis to determine, different ways of work and productivity and efficiency. And a lot of that skill set I gained with my master's degree, but from a very quantitative, viewpoint. But that skill set has carried me through my career, for quite some time. So after, a couple of years at the New York City Department of Personnel doing analytics on performance and time motion studies and how do you actually improve efficiencies and performance of employees, I went over to the Housing Authority as the chief statistician, collecting demographics and doing quantitative data for appropriated funds and grants and just demonstrating what was happening at the Housing Authority and getting financial support. That also led into a job. And again, all of this happened coincidentally. Each time I got a job, I never applied for a job until this very last job that I got. And it was always because I bumped into, and it was always a woman. Every single time I bumped into her at some place and why don't you try this or at some coffee or at some event. And so I ended up going to the Housing Authority from a connection that I had with, I had met this woman, Laura Blackburn. Many of
Yes.
Ms. Blackburn.
Yes.
And she was doing some consultation work at the city, and then she got the job heading up the Housing Authority. And she asked me if I wanted to come over to do statistics, and I did. So I worked there, and then for years doing that, and then I moved into the Department of Asset Management and Private Market Operations after spending a couple of years working with Deborah Wright, former president of Carver Bank, as her policy assistant, doing policy analysis on federal bills that were coming out and what related to the Housing Authority. And at that time, I was in law school at night, so that was a great opportunity. For those of you that know Debbie, she is fabulous. That is somebody that I aspire to be like in terms of her work ethic, her dedication to the community, understanding economic and housing development, and how do you move that in a transactional way. Because it's one thing to be an advocate, and I love our advocates, but there's another thing to be an advocate and then actually produce, right? The housing, the jobs, the funding. So that was a great experience. So I did that, and then I moved into asset management, private market operations, where we were actually developing home ownership opportunities, transactions that were supported by tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, which were very, very new at the time. And these were off-balance sheet housing authority units where we were giving residents in housing authority the opportunity to own their own home through limited equity co-ops and the like. So this is the early mid 90s. And doing that work, that we were actually doing, bond issuance and the like. And I met this woman at S&P, and she was like, "Oh, gee, this is interesting stuff. There's now this new federal law that will allow housing authorities to securitize the future appropriations so that they can provide these opportunities. Are you interested in, coming to S&P?" I've been in with the city 13 years. I'm not a Wall Street person. I had braids. I had, and of course, at the time, and I want to talk about the Crown Act and
Yes.
as well at some point. And I was like, I don't know. So, but I went and met her anyway. And I remember my friend Heather Carter. She said, "Oh, just go. You just have a good lunch, if nothing else, right? And then see what happens." I ended up taking a job after much trepidation because I would be leaving the city after about 13 years. And I was like, I'm 7 years from 20 years. And, we are always programmed to be thinking in that way and not step out and take that chance. And I was married at the time. And I remember my husband saying, "If you take that, you're going to go work for a Wall Street firm. You'll know what to do with the pension money. Just go ahead and do it," right? Which I did, right? So that proved to be just an exciting experience. I spent 18 years at Standard & Poor's on Wall Street, starting specifically with credit analytics for public housing authorities that were now moving into private investment to help supplement the government funding, which of course needed to be done because it was shrinking. And we know the state of public housing here in New York, and it's pretty much the same across the country, that you need a public-private partnership in order to bring these, properties to some sort of sustainable level so that it's decent, affordable housing that's habitable for the most vulnerable citizens of our society. So I started doing that, and then I started working with other home ownership opportunities through state funding, and then started to move into the structured finance area, both across the country and then international. So I was able to, become a managing director at Standard & Poor's, which was exciting. At the time, it was only two Black managing directors globally, myself and this other dude who's still a good friend of mine. And so we were always there fighting the fight. It was interesting because, again, I'm kind of how I am, right? So I'm not the typical, assimilated Wall Street person. Not that there's anything, wrong. Everybody goes their own paths. But I always remember but I was always high performing because I knew, right? As a Black person, as a woman, as a Black woman, if I didn't outperform everybody every single time, all the time, that there was going to be an issue. I also was very active in ensuring that I had a diverse staff that was reflective of the body of knowledge that we needed, the people to whom we were providing these analytics. And that was equally important because we had to be sure, as an individual, that was happening, because it was not happening, right, through our normal recruitment process. So in addition to running an international business, I made it my business to be sitting on the campus of Spelman or Morehouse or Howard or Virginia State, wherever, right, to be sure, or at the a Black MBA club at NYU or Harvard or wherever, or even at Baruch, right? I made it my business to physically be there because I wanted to be sure that the young Black people that were considering Standard & Poor's as a place of employment knew that there was someone there that looked like them, that had this title, that was going to support them, right?
Mhm.
But I also I'm going to tell you the truth, right? And I used to always say, I'll give you the MD talk. Now I'm going to give you the mama talk. And I had kids, I got grown kids, so I didn't have any problem giving the mama talk because it's important to be able to function in institutions, like the one we were at. So after 18 years there, running an international business and having the opportunity to grow, I decided it was a good time for me to step back and get back into direct service in public finance. I retired. I was doing some consulting, tripped up again, another woman, a good friend of mine. I'm sure you all know her, Dr. Jocelyn Rainey. And she wasn't a friend. I met her through another one of our sorors, Danielle, who has since left us, but is in a heavenly space. She introduced me to Dr. Rainey. And we were talking about something, and she's like, "Oh, there's a job down at the Navy Yard." So yet another woman, right? She said, "You should go for that." So I did, and I worked down there for a couple of years. It was a wonderful, it was literally down the block from my house, doing a number of things. Oh, hey, Peter, a number of things, and as it related to external affairs, media, press, marketing. Grants, revenue generation, developing events, businesses. But one of the things I also did was create a concierge opportunity for some of the small businesses to support them as they grew in the yard. And through that, I ended up, getting contacted and asked to apply to, Governor Cuomo's administration to run the MWBE division and working with yet another woman, Lourdes Zapata, right, who was a diversity officer taking her spot. And that was game changing. It was a little bit of career changing, right? Because I didn't have a lot of experience with small businesses, MWBEs, and economic development before going to the Navy Yard. But what I did have experience with is equity, is diversity, is speaking up and being sure that everybody had their share fair. So the more technical side of economic development, I credit the folks at the Navy Yard for me learning that and understanding small business dynamics and just taking my own experience. So I spent 2 years at the state during the time that the MWBE law it had expired. The program had expired. It was being extended for 1 year. So when I met Danielle, Stacy as well, that's Article 15A, which we are all very familiar with, I'm sure, on this show. And during that year, it was being renegotiated by the legislature for the program to continue for another 5 years. So part of my role, in addition to just running the operations of the office, the certification program, was to build the message, build the business development arm so that people across the state could have a clear understanding, number one, and then the opportunity to participate in the program. And of course, as you can imagine, implementing MWBE here in the city, as opposed to in Tioga County or Watertown, or even Buffalo, right? We have industries that are industrial. We have the agricultural industry, financial, tech industry, and then just a variety of different socioeconomic, environments, political views. So it was just really, really a great experience, and I got to learn a lot more about my state. So the law was passed, the program was extended, and we were just really building up our business development. And I saw the job at List. And I said, I'm going to apply for this. And I did that because in each of my roles, I had some connection with List, whether it was in the 90s with the low income housing tax credit and short-term lending in the equity fund. Anytime I did any affordable housing deal across the country, at S&P, there was some sort of List component, a loan, a grant, or something, right? And then, the work at the Navy Yard, we were doing economic development with List and had started to begin a partnership with them at the MWBE division. So in my mind, this just kind of took everything together, put it in one place. And so I called the headhunter and begged her for an interview.
And it worked
for me. And here I am.
and here
And
you
here you
are.
are. Ooh.
Yes. I
That's
mean that is good.
a long-winded.
Wait.
No, but
We gotta
no,
give
it's
you.
such a beautiful story because I think it lends to how we gain so many skill sets along the way, and how we don't have to stay in one lane, and it all comes to the benefit of what we're doing, and
Absolutely.
what we look to do as well. But there's something you said a ton of things. I just want to say that, and I'm sure Stacy's going to want to jump in because
Mhm.
things resonated with her, things resonated with me. But I just want to hone in on one thing, because as we talk about Women's History Month and the power of who we are and what we do as women is just, on a professional level and a personal level, is bar none. But you said something really important, and that is how we have to show up, especially as Black women, and what that feels like when
Mhm.
we are in a professional environment and we always have this pressure on us to feel like we have to go above and beyond and show up a certain way. And so I want to talk to you about that, because that is unconsciously and consciously, it's a burden that we carry. And intuitively, we know we are Black girl magic, but we still feel the need to operate in a certain way, and put this pressure on us. And I know what that feels like. I remember being at Pfizer and literally being the only African American on a team of 12, and feeling that same pressure and the need to go above and beyond, and
Mhm.
to show up a certain way. And so, it's I would love to hear your thoughts on that piece of it. And you've been able to successfully navigate that. But that goes a little like internal for us, and how we move in our environment and what that looks like
Mhm.
and feels like.
Yeah, well, it's very internal and it's real, right? I don't, and sometimes when you hear these conversations, like we put this pressure on ourselves. No, we don't. This pressure is put on us, right? As Black women, and think about just how we have moved about society and this country, the sort of almost disregard, right, for us as individuals, for people to understand. I mean, go all the way back to slavery, being mistreated, right, by slave owners' wives, Black women. Who would entrust the care of their child to you? What kind of arrogance is that, right? You would hand your child to somebody that you're going to turn around and whip. Why? Why was that? That's been ingrained, right, in our culture. I mentioned the CARE Act. Think about it. Out of all of the genders and all of the races that inhabit our country, there is only one group who needs a law to have their body in its natural state. I'm not talking about length. I'm not talking about color of pigtails. We always had to chemically or heat change our natural state in order to remain employed. Okay. Think about that, right? And that will tell you how we are received, perceived in the, in society and in the work environment. We have to do better. Then, if we want to deliver some instruction to employees, we get tone shamed. Oh, she's got a tone, right? A tone, right? Not that the person was insubordinate or didn't do what you said or didn't perform. She has a tone. So we have to balance that, right? Plus, know that if we're performing a certain way, there's always a reason, right? And I was just on a talk the other night with Ursula Burns, and she was talking
Yeah.
about the fact that, and I know many of us have read the book, but she was talking about the fact that they would say, "Oh, you're exceptional," right? Or for me, "Oh, she's eccentric." There was always a excuse, right, for you to have been in that room, right? You understand? So it's not like, oh, Valerie went to Fordham, her grades were good, she was on law review, she published a note, she was a managing editor, whatever. She's eccentric, right? but she have to perform extra and let her stay. When you look at the other folks who may be your counterparts, and they may not even have those accolades. So it's a very real pressure. It is not something that we put on ourselves. It's something that society puts on us in just about every facet of our lives as Black women. So we have to recognize it, acknowledge it unapologetically, right? Talk about it. We still got to do it, right? We still know that this is here, but if we don't start really talking about it in this manner, it will continue to be internalized. And so
Absolutely.
that's I know I went and I don't know how many directions, but
No, it's
that's
fine. It's
yeah,
fine. That's why I brought up the
mm,
Crown Act for us to look at, because it's an important conversation. We don't want the past behavior to continue to be normalized. And until we raise our voices and we have, advocacy like the Crown Act, which still is having trouble getting passed in multiple states in 2022. So you can visit the Crown Act for more information. But thank you for sharing that and talking about the truth of our experience as Black women. You can't fix what you don't face. And we
right.
need to fix where we are and what has shown up as we celebrate Women's History Month. And I'm so glad that you took us on a journey of each step of what brought you to here, because as you said, it was a woman who suggested, why don't you apply for, why don't you stretch? And I think that's part of our secret sauce, that we
Right.
can celebrate each other and sometimes see a bigger picture for you than you can see for yourself. One of my mentors, Les Brown, says all the time, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame, and you need other
Mhm.
people around you that can see that opportunity. Girl, try out for that. What's the worst that can happen? And it led you on this path of continued growth and your passion and your advocacy for what you do now at LISC. We're proud to be able to say that you're there. So we get to brag about you and your work. And I want to just shout out those who are tuning in. We have Michelle, Mecca, Peter, hey, Pratt, and Diana. Thank you for coming in and being a part of the conversation, because that's the best way we celebrate women, is create more spaces for the younger version of Valerie White to ascend, the younger version of Danielle Douglas, the younger version of Michelle Davis, Mecca Nelson, Diana Rose, and myself. That's how we continue to grow and move forward. But we do have a few more questions. This is so good,
But
Valerie. Look,
Stacey, I'm sorry. Before we go, I'm of course, pivot back to you to ask the question. But you said something that was very important, and I want to build upon that, because when I think about my relationship with Valerie, and I actually could get emotional. I'm going to try to hold it together. Um, is that when we also can have a bigger vision of ourselves, and so we need folks around us who see us as, in that light. They support us. They're not like, girl, you tripping. Why would you think you can't do that? And even though it may be building your capacity and trying out new skill sets, they're actually holding your hand like, you got this. Because I already see you in the present of what you're becoming in the future, what is going to materialize in the future. So I think it's like not only those who see you in a bigger vision and support you, but also when you have a bigger vision of yourselves and they're like, I got this. I'm here with you. I see that and I'm going to support you in that. So I'm going to, give homage to Valerie in a very real way, because I feel like that is a personal experience that I have. And that is truly Black Girl Magic and us supporting each other in the spirit of what women's history is all about. So
And I
I love
thank
it.
appreciate
you.
you, Danielle. I really do. And I think what's also important for us to say, okay, yes, girl, we got this. We can't do this. We're gonna do that. But let's do this, or let's do it this way, or maybe, and to be able to have that dialogue with each other in a way that's not. And I can sit here and I named a couple of people. We have to be, in that mode together, right? Where we know the end product is going to succeed. And this has been, I had some experience with at the state, or even to some extent at S&P, where we had to say, okay, we need to make this change, and we need to do this thing, or we need to present this product, but let's we have to galvanize ourselves as Black people, as Black women, to get it through, and it's that support that makes it so important. Yeah.
Awesome. So Michelle says, and I'll repeat her comment, the conversation goes so deep, making space for other women requires us to stretch and accept greatness that we are, as opposed to the limitations that is often offered to women of color. I love this connection.
Hi,
David.
Michelle.
So these are the spaces that we're glad we can curate when we talk about real-time issues and real-time solutions. And there's so much that we could clearly be here with you and discuss today, but we're going to get into a few more pieces of the conversation, and something that you alluded to. I'm going to kind of combine the question, where do you get your inspiration from, and how does that sustain you on your journey? And then I'll wait for the second one, because that is a mouthful.
A lot of it comes just from my family, my parents. So my parents met on the campus of Brooklyn College as freshmen. So for those of you, and I actually just had their 65th wedding anniversary last July. And I mentioned the campus sugar bowl, and I think it was somebody, one of your frats, Stacey. I remember which one. It might have been Earl.
Oh, yeah.
Earl. He said a whole lot of relationships started at the campus sugar bowl, but they last 65 years, right? But they just instilled this in us, right? They were both very academically inclined. I happen to be fourth generation college degree, college educated. My father's grandfather went to Cooper Union, right? Which is some deep stuff, right? So my father's 86, so his grandfather graduated from Cooper Union. So let's absorb that for a moment. But also, just a sense of responsibility, right, that comes along with being a Black person, being a person of color, being the person in the room and opening them doors. And I'll step back again to Ursula Burns, because that talk she gave, I was like, man, was this lady? Was she in the room where I was during the time? What have you? And she talked about that. She talked about that responsibility, that I may be the first, and she quoted our vice president, I may be the first one, but I ain't gonna be the last one in this position, right? And she talked about the fact that if you are in the room and you get these questions from people, are you comfortable? No, I'm not comfortable. I'm the only one in here that look like this. No, right? And why it's important for us that are there to bring that discomfort to what we do, and our complete authentic selves to what we do, and to be a catalyst, a trailblazer for making those changes, so there is an equitable environment. So that's hugely important, and I think that that's part of what it is that kind of drives me.
I love that. I love that. I know Danielle's going to jump in, but I just want to tie in one more question. I'm going to turn it over to her, because you talked about early on in the conversation some of the challenges for women in business and women-owned business, and even with some equity. So from your perspective, what are the current challenges that, women-owned businesses are facing? A lot of our viewers are MWBEs, small businesses, and for the obvious reason, we attract other women professionals. But what would you say? Because you've seen it from a couple of different vantage points, and would love for you to share on that.
Oh, well, the number one is always going to be access to capital, right? And access to capital, if you don't have capital, you can't run a business, right? And access to capital is key. Traditionally, women in general, right, have not had the same access to credit, and we build on that as women, largely over generations. But we've always had this sort of lesser score, right, or lesser ability. I was watching what's her name, Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if y'all watch that; it's real good, right? The Adventures of Mrs. Maisel, and she was, had gotten divorced, and it's a show on Netflix or Amazon, one of them things. But she was becoming this comic, and she was famous, and everybody knew her, whatever. And she got divorced. She went to get a little credit for them to bring her milk. They're like, oh, girl, you divorced. You got to bring cash. I was like, wait a minute. They've seen this lady. She's selling records. What's happening, right? So women in general, we've always had that access left. Black people, right? People of color, right? Immigrants have not had the same access. But when you look at it statistically, immigrants somewhat have been able to have a little bit more access. But women of color, we just don't have the same access to capital. So we need to be identifying those financial sources that provide that. Many times it'll come in the through like a CDFI, your local community development financial institution, which also brings technical support and more, customer service toward that. And they're going to be more, amenable to providing that capital to women entrepreneurs, and they are more amenable because that's their job, right? That's why CDFIs were put put on. And indeed, maybe about 3 weeks ago, I was up at Sobro with Lourdes Zapata, and she was hosting Governor Hochul for a roundtable. It was like 10 of us, the public roundtable. And at that event, Governor Hochul announced that she's given $150 million to CDFI specifically to support minority-owned businesses in our BIPOC communities. So for those of you that are small minority-owned businesses, you should be contacting your CDFIs, including LISC. List.org /NYC is our where we are. And that's the List National website. We have a List New York website as well, specific. So you can contact us and we'll put you in touch with who could be helpful. But that's the biggest thing. But in addition to that, it's just, having that continued support for women-owned businesses. And it's important to figure out, where you get that from. Nicola Evans up in Harlem. Yes, that's us. Yeah. Nicola Evans up in Harlem. She runs a nonprofit called Harlem Park to Park. Danielle, another one of our sources. She was also, and that's Nicola right there with that gentleman, as you can see. She provides specific support both through social media channels, but also through her nonprofit for women-owned business. Kenya Brew, many of you should know. If you don't know Kenya, you should know Kenya. She runs the New York Women's Chambers, the New York Women's Chamber, and that is specifically designed to provide technical assistance, grant support, and just, an opportunity for women to gather and talk about what it is that they need as women-owned businesses. But I would say, Stacey, access to capital is the number one.
Thank you for that.
And Valerie, you touched upon a lot of practical things that a woman could, take advantage of. So we appreciate that so much. And so are there any, and first of all, I just want you to know, Kenya was actually a guest on the show as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we have
Kenya. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. She's resourceful, and she will help every single woman business that contacts her organization.
So thanks for sharing the love and sharing with us, other resources out there. But are there any specific initiatives that LISC NYC is doing specifically for women entrepreneurs? I know you run, when I say you, LISC NYC, you are helping in so many different ways, from housing to entrepreneurship to grants, access to capital. Like, you're touching upon so many things. But are there any initiatives specifically for women on a personal level? May it be, in regards to housing, things like that, or even on a professional level as it relates to grants or other additional resources to help them build their capacity?
Well, first, when we get money, we invest in, a number of economic development and other infrastructure based upon money that we're able to raise from funders. So when we get money, it goes out. And it's interesting. People always call grants. I said we're not having no money sitting around waiting for somebody to call us for a grant. The money is in. It's going to go out. So we work very closely with economic development programming in the communities that work with small businesses. So Kenya being one of our partners, where we sub grant to those type of organizations to provide that sort of on the ground support. So right now we're trying to raise for some additional grants that we can put out into the small business community. And when we stand up a program, there's a big fanfare. Everybody hears about it. We go on TV and we're talking about it, and we try to get that money out within a couple. It's usually no more than a few months, right? But unfortunately, there's particularly with grants, there's never going to be enough money to go around. But in addition to that, we have a number of different programs, again, that we work through our nonprofit partners. There's 16 main ones across the city that work in our small business relief and recovery program. And we wanted to be sure we were hitting those neighborhoods that are most negatively impacted by COVID. And so we work with those organizations. So and there's Ibrahima Soiree. Yes, yeah, and he is the individual to contact to match our small businesses with the right nonprofit in their neighborhood.
And Valerie, I'm sorry to cut you off. I want you to continue, but I just want to say there are, we're from Southeast Queens, and I'm sure, like I'm looking at Diana, I see, she's here with us, that you work very closely right here with, RDRC.
Right.
They delivered grant funds on, that you provided. Also, Greater Jamaica Development.
Yeah.
So, we see it right here, at least in the Southeast Queens. And of course, that is what's been duplicated. Of course, other neighborhoods, like you said, that's been most impacted by COVID. So I just wanted to say that, like, for those who live in the community, those are two of the main resources that you use as channels to get these resources to the small business community.
Yeah, and it's not just the grants, it's also that long-term assistance, right? How do you change your business model? How do you move into e-commerce or having a virtual existence? Some businesses can't sell online, right? Because they are personal services businesses. So how do you utilize, a virtual existence to sort of, replace high density and foot traffic as a means to drive customers to you? How do you figure that out? And then we look to ensure that the support is there in the long run. The other thing is we are having a Women's History Month event. I want to say is March 19th. And in fact, Danielle is one of the guests, right? I don't think it's there now, but it might be on our LinkedIn coming up soon. But I'll be sure to get it to you all to put on your page to encourage people to attend.
So, I think it's March 22nd, Valerie.
Oh, is it 22nd? I think that one was last year's event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the replay. But all of our webinars, events, our galas, which if I must say myself, are fabulous. Anybody ever want to know if we're, like you could see there, Stacy, the RFQ that we had where we were looking for consultants under, I think it was under events. Our website is a great source of information. You can see what we're, when we're looking to attract additional consultants or partners, view our webinars, view our reports, and all of that is included on our website.
Absolutely. And we'll put the actual website in the chat as well, so that, you can go back and visit on your own time. But you can see I'm clicking through so that you can in real time see how much information is here. Remember, it's always about the real-time issues of real-time solutions. And while we're celebrating Women's History Month, we have one of the movers and shakers, a history maker herself, here with us as the executive director for List NYC. And this conversation could go on another 2 hours
For
because
sure.
it's so rich. And we appreciate your transparency, your honesty, your wisdom, because that's what we have to do as women. Pass it on because we're not going to be here forever. So, how do we pass it on to the next set of upcoming leaders and shakers? But we do have maybe one or two more questions that we can get in. So I'm gonna turn it over to Danielle for the next one. And thank you, Latoya, for tuning in.
Hi,
Another one of
Latoya.
your sorors.
Yes. And guess what? I have to say this. I'm going to digress just for a second. We want to honor Miss Stacy as well because she's going to be a speaker for a Women's History Month
Yes.
event as well. And Latoya was like, "Guess who's going to be a speaker at a Women's?" And I said, "She's going to do it." Latoya, tell you I was bigging you up. I said, "She's going to do a fabulous job, Latoya." So
Well,
you
thank you,
know,
thank you. The
yeah,
world is so small,
it's
right? It's
so
so
small.
small, and I think that right there, Danielle, is just another point. You got to live right. I've been saying that since I was younger, and someone told that to me. You never know who knows who. It's just better to be authentic and be you and add value. So no matter where you are, where you go, people always have something kind to say when your name is mentioned. So yes, thank you for that. We were cracking up when I saw her on that. I was like, wait, what? So
But
yes.
guess what, Stacey? You know, I've been giving some love to Valerie this morning, but you know how much I love you too. So if it's like here on the show or if it's behind the scenes on the text, I'm gonna big you up because you my girl too. You know that.
And I love you too.
And so with that said, so Valerie, you being the visionary that you are, tell us what is your vision? What's your hope as we move forward as women making things happen, being on and popping? What's your vision?
I am hopeful, and I hesitate for a moment because I want to remain hopeful. I am hopeful that this last round of attention to inequities is actually the movement finally and not the moment. And I hesitated with that because we have seen so many cyclical attentions to inequities that we face as Black people and as women, that it kind of we as a society just move back into what we sort of that head in the sand kind of thing going forward. And I say that because I was being interviewed for Cranes. I was in one of their things, and they asked me that question: "Oh, why are you hopeful? Now that we've had the George Floyd murder, that there's going to be equity and opportunities for MWBEs." I said, "Well, that in and of itself is an issue. Why did it take some man to get murdered in the Midwest, and we had to watch it several times for 9 minutes, right?" For contractors in New York City to get equitable access to the two. The two really don't even have anything to do with each other. Why is that the case? Why? And then there's this guilt, and I will say this: corporate white guilt is very fleeting, right? It's whatever it is that will be causing or that will allow yes, we agree with that until it's not a thing anymore, right? Till it's no longer cachet. And we've seen it in our history. I mean, I've talked about this many times. The civil rights movement was changed because of television, because people had televisions in their house when they didn't have them before. So it's one thing to be like, "Oh, it's a shame, it's Jim Crow going on down there," whatever. It's another thing to actually have to physically look at people getting beat and the hoses and the dogs, or look at Emmett Till's body, right? So then you saw a sudden shift, right? And then we got our little piece of equity. We got our voting rights for 20 years, right? From 66 to 86, 20 years. And then it'll all be okay by then. And then society went back into its hole. So I am hopeful that this sort of round of awakening, being woke, which is now I don't even go there. Realization is not just yet another one of those blips in the history of our country, our society, and that we go right back into um, how we've been socialized for the last 400 years. And I think there is somewhat of an opportunity, but I also felt like the '60s were like that as well, and we were moving in that direction, and then we just kind of didn't. I take a lot of pride in watching, our sister who wrote the 1619 and told, who was it? It was Duke, right? Yeah, yeah. Reconsider. You offered a tenure. Never mind. I'm going to Howard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that we're able to do that. But I wanted to mean something, right? And what does that mean? It might mean we all need to be at Howard's of business and Howard's of institution. I don't know. So that doesn't sound real hopeful, but that's kind of how I think about things.
Well, Valerie, I do think there is in your message hope, because again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show, which is that you walk your talk. And so you continue to try to have impact, and you said that to the younger folks, to your peers, people like me. You still, your mission is to have impact. So therefore, inherently, you still have hope, because you're still trying to
Absolutely.
make a difference.
Yeah.
Hope springs eternal.
Yes.
Hope
Hope springs
springs
eternal.
eternal, for sure.
Yes, indeed. And it's the truth. While you had to pause, that pause is reality. And where
Mhm.
we all are very cautious, but optimistic that we can see change. And
Mhm.
Latoya said, I too hope the acknowledgement of our pain and systemic mistreatment is not a fad. Girl, that's a whole word right there. I
Mhm.
also hope we continue to bring a folding chair, yes, to Shirley Chisholm, if
Yes.
we're not offered a seat, to ensure our needs are considered and met. That's an amen moment right there. I think I need to because that is the truth, and why these conversations are important, and why Danielle and I said, let's celebrate, women in business. We had some entrepreneurs that we featured at the top of the month. And today we wanted to focus on just the professional aspect of what it takes to be Valerie White in 2022 as the executive director of LISC NYC, and celebrate that, and also talk about the real road to getting there, to inspire other women who are on their journey, that it's possible for all of us if each one pulls one, teaches one, and shares with one. I love collecting Black girl brilliance on my journey, and having you here is definitely a part of that, modeling that behavior. I remember when we met up at the MWBE forum, and I was like, oh, I just love her spirit and her energy. And Danielle said, you walk the talk, you talk your walk your talk. It's all you. And just in that moment of just connecting, someone's heart, you can feel someone's energy. And then, the subsequent meetings and places, or just even seeing online, that is how we honor the many women whose names will never be written on a marquee, who haven't been recorded in the history books, whose businesses didn't have the opportunities to shine and flourish and grow, but they laid the groundwork and they laid the groundwork and the foundation for what we can celebrate today. So thank you for representing that space, Valerie. I know we are coming down to the end of the show, and that's sad for me. And Black Girl Brilliance, yes, you can borrow it, Latoya. You can borrow it. But this has been a wonderful conversation. As we turn it over to Danielle to close out, I just personally want to say that I appreciate the space that you're holding. It's joy for me to brag on you and your accomplishments, and that I know my nieces, my cousins, younger members that I do business with can look at you as a Black woman and see the accomplishments and the journey that took you here. And we can still laugh about the Bronx and talk about the days on
Crazy
House
Eddie, right?
46 and all of that. and keep it real, that we don't have to pretend that we are in some sort of mold. And I love the fact that you've always broken out of the norm and the mold of what people expected for the caliber of excellence that you exude. So thank you for being here and celebrating women in business for Women's History Month on From the Ground Up. Reminder to everyone, we're here the first and third Tuesday of each month. So tell a friend, follow us, drop a comment, because I am trying to find out where Byron Allen is so he can just pick up the whole production that we're doing.
Exactly.
We've been putting it out there in the universe, Stacey, this whole 2022. So it's going to happen.
Yes, yes,
Because the universe,
absolutely.
when you put it out there, you just attract it. We don't know. That's the faith walk because we don't know
Indeed.
where it's
And
coming
look,
from, but it's coming.
it's coming. Bishop, my dear friend Bishop Sean Lewis just came on, so we just sealed it with an extra blessing this morning.
Yes. And look, and we're going to say an amen to that.
Yes, indeed. But over to you, Danielle, to close us out for another incredible episode of From the Ground Up, real-time issues and real-time solutions for MWBEs and small business.
So I just want to say, I say this all the time, and I know it may sound like, okay, here Danielle goes again. But did we bring it? I mean, I am ceased to be amazed at, the fabulousness of the guests that we bring. And guess what? Miss Valerie White, she brought it today. And so as Miss Stacey, Dr. Stacey, and I continue to try to come from a heart space to want to provide great information, great resources that you all can utilize to be more productive, be more profitable, to have greater impact. We continue to be blessed because when I get to, I get to speak to Val, I could just call her. But the point is that even with that said, I was blessed this morning. So thank you, Valerie. And so I just hope that you all, that you all continue to show up and be here with us because Stacey and I, we're going to continue to show up. We are your partners trying to provide real-time solutions to real-time issues. And so I always say knowledge is only becomes wisdom when you apply it. So we just hope that you take this information, it guides you and gets you to higher ground. And I got to do a shameless plug because the Council for Black Business Enterprises, the nonprofit that I started, we are actually having a Women's History Month, and it is celebrating Black women trailblazers in business. So, it's going to be Valerie White times 4. So we hope that you can make it. It will be Wednesday, March 30th from 5:30 to 7:30. So, we hope that you will, get to make it and spend some more time with us. But with that said, I want you to have a fabulous 2 weeks. Make it happen. And we're looking forward to seeing you real soon so we could still give you some real-time solutions to your real-time issues. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.